Welcome to Living a Full Life podcast. Join us as we explore health topics that encourage raising healthy children, living a healthy life, and living the best life possible. Now, here's your host.
Hello and welcome to another podcast of Living a Full Life. I'll be your host, Dr. Enrico Dolcecore, and this week's topic, long COVID. It's been a few years since 2020, and we're dealing with the aftermath now. Many people have been diagnosed officially with something called long COVID. It was talked about early on in 2021 with symptoms lingering for people from the COVID infection. And now it's officially been classified as long COVID. There's a myriad of symptoms that come with it. But for those of you struggling post 2020, 2021, some of you, I don't know how you held off till 2022 before getting it, but you did. And you may still be feeling the side effects from this. I talked to a hairdresser locally, and she's been so adamant about long COVID because she helped so many women with their hair that some of them had a side effect of hair loss. And she is just an amazing hairdresser helping these people nutritionally through referrals to doctors and in the community as well. But she's learned so much about long COVID and hair loss because women, I mean, it's so important to them with their looks. I mean, the hair, everything. I mean, to lose your hair, man or woman. I mean, it's not a symptom that you like. So that's just one example of long COVID. But what about the respiratory and energy things that are happening? So what is long COVID? What does this mean? We know what the symptoms were when we had COVID: the loss of smell, taste, the headache, the fatigue, the body ache, maybe even the respiratory issues that affected so many millions of people, some seriously. Those were the effects of COVID itself. But long COVID means that we're still lingering with the chronic condition of COVID, which is unlike the rhinovirus and other viruses that we go with the common cold or even flus. There is something called long flu. If you guys haven't heard of that, look that up. That same thing where you get such a vicious flu infection that you're left with long-term effects because of that flu as well. And there's other side effects that can happen from viruses. Some viruses are permanent. They lay dormant. They always wreak havoc. Think of like chickenpox, for example, comes back as shingles. These are just examples of viruses living within our body. So what can we do? What are they? Let's talk about the symptoms. Most people, I get these questions a lot as a chiropractor in our office. Do you think, doc, that this is probably post-COVID? And it's so early on that we really don't know what is and what isn't, but it's pretty obvious when it comes to science. Remember, everyone keeps saying, trust the science. Well, what does that mean? Science is an ongoing process. And the basic fundamental principle of science is observation. We observe and we write down some hypotheses. That's what science is. So when people say trust the science, well, what trust the hypotheses? That's what you're saying to me when you say trust the science? You're literally saying trust the theories. Well, they're theories, and I'm not going to trust them 100% until they're law. Thank you very much. So the law of gravity, I trust, but the law of science, not until it's actual law do I trust theories. Theories are just constant observation and hypotheses and testing over time, over and over and over again, until we can replicate the same result, exactly the same, over and over and over again, to the point where we're like, it's so repetitious that it is now a law. Very hard to get to that point because of variation. So science is an ongoing thing. Sorry for that aside. But long COVID, what is it? Fatigue and weakness is the number one symptom that most people are saying that they have carried 1, 2, 3 years after their original bout of COVID. And they're just weak, that their energy is just not there. They are very adamant that their energy is very different than it was after COVID than it was before. The second one is respiratory issues. They just feel like their O2 and their breathing isn't the same as it was. They feel heavy. They feel like they're constantly fighting when they're really not. They've been left with some maybe respiratory issues from that, or lung damage. Cognitive disabilities, where people are having difficulty remembering, attention to detail, problem solving. Their jobs have become more difficult just because of that brain fog, that cognitive difficulties that they have. Joint and pain discomfort, or pain in the joints, discomfort from that. And then mental health, just the overall mental health of recovering from this, the trauma of it, the social impact, the emotional impact, the financial impact. We were impacted by COVID. We can't ignore that. But that seems to be the most common side effects of COVID, and that is called long COVID. So if you're in that boat or you know anyone that's in there, listen up, because the solutions are out there. They're just, because we're still learning as we go, it's going to have to be functional medicine, because it was the functional medicine group that came out with ivermectin and all these other yelling from the top of their lungs saying, listen, this is what we do for animals. Why can't we do it? And I'm not saying that that's the solution, and don't make this political, but it was the functional medicine group early on that came out and said, and functional medicine is an umbrella to using vitamins, using natural substances, non-prescription based, in the medical field. So MDs, DOs, DCs, all the doctors that are trained in healthcare can get trained in certain assets of functional medicine. They can be internists, they can be respiratory, they can be cardio, they can be typically specific ones will be MDs and DOs, and then internists and global ones will be other branches. And so to become a functional medicine doctor. So listening to this group is where the answers are coming from, because not only are we getting this great results in our practice, but all the functional medicine groups from around the country and around the world are helping their patients with long COVID by looking at some very important markers in the body. So listen in. If you're suffering, maybe you have chronic fatigue. Maybe you don't know if it was COVID or not. It was around that time. For some of you, you got your hands way up in the air and you're saying, I have fatigue because of my COVID bouts for sure, 100%. I know that was that. Another question that pops up, and we're going to do this really fast. Can the COVID vaccine cause long COVID? And there is no literature showing that yet either. Of course, they're going to deny everything right now, but in the long term, can it? Absolutely. Because if we're even attenuating viruses and we put those into the body, whichever way we put them into the body, nasal injection, whatever it may be, we are creating that cascade. We're bypassing the other cascade, which is natural. So if you naturally got COVID, like myself, from the environment, and you go through that Th1, Th2 cascades in the body, my immune system created a lot more antibodies in response to that, which could be problematic for some people. They had the respiratory issues, right? For the people that got all the vaccines, they skipped the cascade, because you skip the oral and nasal pathology that comes with viruses when you're ingesting them. It creates a cascade in your nose, your sinus, your throat, your gut. When you inject it into the bloodstream, you're only getting the one cascade. Long story short, either way, we're creating that cascade, which can be linked to long COVID. So the answer is yes, but we just don't have the literature yet to show all the cascade and what's possibly happening. And that's okay. And that's just where we are. And that's what we have to live with for now. So problems that can happen with the mood and fatigue changes that happen with this, we have to look at the gut. The gut gets the dysbiosis in the gut is what happens when we get a viral load in the body. And because COVID was so new, it's such a different virus, it created huge gut dysbiosis in almost everyone that came in contact with it. It had to, because that was just part of that cascade that happens with that. And then we have prior dysbiosis before even being infected. We were just not optimally set up to defend ourselves in our guts to viruses, and that whole cascade, that whole tornado becomes worse when we're cited to another virus. So this happens in the future too. You're going to catch other viruses. You're always exposed to viruses. So having a healthy gut is so important. And what's happening with long COVID patients is once we start to clean up the gut, we help them clean up their gut by getting rid of, harmful bacteria, overgrowths of yeasts, allergies, parasites, whatever may be in the gut. Once you start cleaning those up, they are getting a lot more energy back from that. Now, was that directly related to COVID? Was that a dysbiosis prior? We don't know. Either way, they're getting better. That's great. That's all we want to know, is that patients are getting better. Enzymes enzymes, getting those enzymes figured out, checking the good and bad bacteria. We want to facilitate good bacteria. We want to eliminate bad bacteria, but there has to be a biosis between them. Some bad bacteria is important in the gut. All bacteria is important in the gut, and too much good bacteria can cause issues as well. We see this with the probiotic group, who are always on probiotics, always eating yogurts, always doing everything for probiotics. They overgrow some of this good flora, which ends up becoming bad flora because we have too much of it. We have an overgrowth of flora and some flora in the body. So the whole point is we got to repair this. So we use zinc, antioxidants, fatty acids, glutamine. We use all these things to help heal the gut through that time and through a detox process as well. And that's step number 2. So 1, look at the gut. We have to look at the gut. Number 2, the liver. So as we start healing the gut, we put on the supplements and we're changing up the diet a little bit to prevent inflammation in the gut. We then start to liver detox. So we definitely have to, at that point, get onto an anti-inflammatory diet. We do that, limit or eliminate alcohol completely. Water is so important during this process, and then trying to minimize our exposure to toxins, which means we're going to cook a lot of our own food at home and just limit how much we eat out. And then start maybe even some binders to help the liver pull some things out from the gut and from the bloodstream as well. So that's important as well. Once we've got the detox process going, and this takes months, ladies and gentlemen, it absolutely does. The symptoms get better quite quickly in weeks, which is super fascinating. How once we implement the gut protocols, how they start to get better. That is absolutely fantastic. And the reason why I'm not going into detail into protocols, because the protocols are very unique to each person. You got to go through blood work, stool analysis. You got to do a little bit of homework, get the analysis done. And that's what we do in our office. Dr. Hafer does that at our office. And you can reach out to her virtually. Wherever you are listening to this, you just contact us at fulllifetampa.com. We will put you into connection. We typically find someone local to you to help you locally, because it's just nice to go into a clinic and meet the person that's helping you. We believe in that, but we also are here to help you as well. And we're a source, a network for you as well. Mitochondrial rehab. We have to rehab the intracellular component, because that's where the virus attacked. It attacks our cells. It breaks into the intracellular fluid. It causes damage inside. Many of our cells survive that. It's, again, RNA-based. We know that, DNA-based. Changes those things. We have to just get our intracellular fluid detoxed. Now, if you had this 2-3 years ago, your cells are all new by this point. Every 7 years, all the cells in our body are new. But still, we need to just do some intracellular detoxification through B vitamins, coenzyme Q10, vitamin C, high dose vitamin C. Now, again, don't go out buying a bunch of vitamin C and taking this just because you listen to this podcast. Definitely get assessed properly and get the right answers. And then the immune system starts to rejuvenate, and we can facilitate that with checking zinc, vitamin D, start implementing intermittent fasting, sleeping a few more hours per night to increase the healing potential in the body. And this recipe that I just told you has been so successful that I am confidently creating a podcast on long COVID, not because I'm an expert at all, but because of the results we're getting. And ladies and gentlemen, that is science. Observation, testing, and seeing the results. And I'm going to tell you right now, we've observed all these patients. We've tested all these patients, and all our colleagues across the country. So the dozens that we've helped, times the dozens that all our dozens of networking groups have done, thousands of people with long COVID have been getting better through these types of protocols. They're very similar. Most of the baskets look the same, but you got to be careful with what age group, what prescription drugs they're on, what their history is, on what you give them for cellular repair and detoxification. So we are aware of that, and that's what functional medicine is all about. Super fascinating stuff with that. If you or anyone you know has long COVID, we're here for you. We're here for you. There's tons of people for you. Look into functional medicine. Not the best thing to open up a search bar on the web and put in functional medicine. You're going to get tons of information about a whole bunch of stuff. You may get sidetracked with other things, but look into it. The most popular functional medicine people in the country are very niche specific. So you want to find somebody that maybe is very well versed in long COVID. There's thyroid functional medicine doctors. There's hormone functional medicine doctors. There's male health, female health, pediatric. I mean, it's a branch of medicine that's out there. The principle why we talk about it, why it's called functional, is because we're not using prescription medicine to help anybody, particularly through prescription drugs. We're using functional. We're taking supplements and nutrition and using their functions to help heal, restore, and detox the systems in the body that may be linked to the disease processes that are there. All viruses love our guts. They live in there, and that's how they get into the bloodstream. That's how they lay dormant. And that can go anywhere. It can go into our nervous system. It can go into our blood. It can go into our muscle. That's why we can get achy, fatigue, joint pain, because these are the viruses. And it's not just the virus that's going out there. It's the waste products from the virus. It's the battle that viruses have in our body when we attack them, and that collision happens and we break them down, and our army starts breaking them down. It's the side effect of that causes a lot of the inflammatory responses to wherever they go. So long COVID, if you have questions, reach out to us. And if you have any of those symptoms, whether it's related to COVID or not, fatigue, brain fog, I highly advise getting gut tested, stool tested, blood work by a professional that is well-versed in restoring and helping people get better naturally first. And then a good functional medicine doctor will refer you to the right MDs as well, specialties as well. There, we're referring to endocrinologists, internists, oncologists all the time, because sometimes medicine has its role, its purpose, and it can truly help people. So we do that too. That's what good healthcare is all about. And so a good functional medicine doctor can go a long way. Put that person in your back pocket and keep them there for your entire family. That's always a great resource there. Again, questions, reach out to us. Full Life Chiropractic on all of our social media handles, or Full Life Chiro if you don't find the right one. We're on everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Stay well, stay healthy. Take care.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Living a Full Life podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.